Since UniSQ has a lot of, popular and different programs for different types of interests, so could you just mention your flagship programs or the, most popular programs among the students, especially international students?
Thank you. Our program is mainly aligned with our research strengths,
Right.
in particular in engineering, science, and programs like all our engineering programs. We cover all in different engineerings. As I mentioned before, we have civil engineering, mechanical engineering, construction management, material science, information technology, data science, artificial intelligence. So there's a whole range of science engineering program is one of our strengths.
Hi everyone, welcome to our Thoughtcast, where we dive deep into the most exciting and pressing questions about the international education. And joining us today is a very special guest, Professor Ren, the Pro Vice Chancellor at the University of Southern Queensland. And in this episode, we'll be discussing some of the most interesting questions about international education, career prospects, and how the University of Southern Queensland is adapting to the future and what holds for international students in the Australia. So without a further ado, let's welcome Dr. Ren. Welcome to this show, Professor Ren.
Thank you.
So for our audience, do you mind introducing yourself a little, briefly about your experience and years in the industry?
Thank you. So my name is Ren Yi. I'm the Pro Vice Chancellor International at the University of Southern Queensland, Australia. And also I'm the current president of International Education Association of Australia as well. My discipline, I'm a professor in economic geography and international business. And I've been working in the higher education sector in Australia for more than 20 years. In the past, I have been in the graduate school in charge of the graduate research, and also I worked in the Australia Research Council as well. So from teaching, learning, research, industry engagement, so I've been doing all round of in the higher education sector in Australia.
It's so great to have you, Professor Ren, and I'm so looking forward to our conversation today. So to start, my first question to you will be, can you start by giving us a brief introduction about the USQ and what makes it so special, apart from the other universities?
The University of Southern Queensland is a research-intensive university, and it's one of the public university. We are registered in the state of Queensland. Australia is a very small country in terms of population. India have 1.4 billion people.
Right.
Australia only have 27 million. So we're much smaller. We have a less population in the whole country than the city of Delhi or Mumbai. So that's put into perspective. But Australia have much bigger land than the country of India.
Right.
So it's a country a lot of people say is very lucky and it's very safe. We have a very strong gun control. So let's make very safe state. And it's very beautiful state with different landscapes. So it's called lucky country. But also make a difference is Australia is also a smart country. So with 0.04% of the world population, Australia contribute about 4% of the world knowledge every year through publications. So University of Southern Queensland is one of the public university. We are intensively doing research internationally and domestically. So that makes the university very special to produce new knowledge. So we are not teaching secondhand knowledge from someone else. We're teaching our own. So it's a number one, it's a research intensive university. Number two, the University of Southern Queensland is for the last decade, it's been number one for employability.
Right.
Because our program was co-designed with industry partners. So our student, both at undergraduate and postgraduate level, and they have the highest employability and a starting salary in Australia and the state of Queensland. And that's continuously for the last 10 years. So any parents want to send kids to study, and when they graduate, they want to get a good job and a higher paid job. So that's something very unique for University of Southern Queensland. And our program is credited by the peak bodies, and we also engage with industry for designing the program. The third very unique thing for UniSQ is state of Queensland have the highest business trading with India. 70% of the total trade between Australia and India are from the state of Queensland. So that means there's a lot of job opportunities.
That's amazing.
So when student choosing to study in anywhere in Australia, they really need to understand the trading relationship is determine their future jobs.
Right.
So that's a very important element. And we, as one of the state university and in the country, and we're very proud to have that strong, continuous and deep relationship with India.
Right. So I've also read somewhere that Australia has the most employment to population ratio. So I think what you are saying, it just clarifies that also. We have a lot of other destinations as well. They provide plenty of good, opportunities to students, to attract students. If you take USA, it has a great market. Same UK provides a lot of scholarships, Canada. So what makes Australia, better than these countries, sorry?
I think number one, if you have a look around the world, there's a lot of attention at the moment. If you look, number one thing is you want to study, you want to go somewhere you can learn something.
Right.
And somewhere you can't do it at home.
Sure.
So Australia is one of those smart nations, which is small population but contribute a lot, make it top 10 in the world for contributing new knowledge. So that's a critical. Number two, I think any parents or grandparents, when they want to send their children to go overseas,
Right.
the number one concern is safety.
True. Absolutely.
And you mentioned the United States,
Yeah.
and it's a great country for study, discovery, and all that. But are we safe? That's a
Big
question mark
yeah.
I want to put forward. Same with other countries. You can hear there's a lot of issues, but Australia is not one of those countries. So number one is about smart. Number two is about safety. And the number three is about climate. And a lot of those countries you mentioned, United Kingdom, Canada, and United States, and either they're extremely cold or extremely hot, and they have extreme weathers.
Right.
But Australia is continuously as the most livable country in the world. Most of our cities, particularly in the state of Queensland, is called beautiful one day, perfect the next. So that's where you want to send your kids to study. It's not only have intelligence, but also safe, and it's have a good weather and livable.
Right. So
Yeah.
Australia is a beautiful country. If you want a top-notch education with a scenic beauty, Australia is your place.
Correct.
Okay. So we all know that, and I asked this to a lot of our guests. We all know that having experience and just classroom knowledge is not enough, and hands-on experience is very important. So how does the USQ ensures that the students are getting hands-on experience, side by side, the education, the academics?
So as I mentioned, we're teaching what we discover. So that's very important. We don't teach secondhand information. So that's a very important part. And also I mentioned before, previous questions, we have the highest employability and starting salary because we co-design our program with our industry partners. For example, we're the only university working with John Deere, the American company, for our agriculture engineering program. And by the way, UniSQ is the only university in the whole Australia teaching undergraduate and postgraduate degree on agriculture engineering. So that's using artificial intelligence, robotic farming, water control, all of that to helping with advance the modern agriculture industry.
Right.
So we co-designed that. And also our engineering program and working with NASA, we have 13 telescopes. And on our campus, the only rocket launching testing facility in Australia. And we're working with all the industry very closely to design our program. And we also credited those engineering program, particularly our postgraduate programs, all credited by the Engineering Australia. Health is another one, nursing, social work, psychology, all of those programs have a tight connection with the industry through the health districts in our region and in the state of Queensland. We have the largest paramedicine program. Our social science, media communication, we're working with television industry in Australia. We train a lot of those media comm people, and also animation for media and communication as well. So I guess there's a couple of stages we jointly discover with the industry. And then we also co-design our program with industry. And then we put students to go through that process to working with the industry, and again, the employability and a starting salary as well.
Right, that's amazing. So there's something for everyone. If you want to study psychology, you have it. If you want to study, aerospace engineering, you have it. You just name it, and UniSQ has everything.
Yes, correct.
So that's amazing. Also, scholarships makes a huge difference, and every student, look forward to it. So what are the scholarship opportunities that does USQ have?
We currently have different scholarships. Any student coming to study with us, at the moment, we have 15% and fee scholarships for any student from India to study with our program. But we also have those competitive programs and scholarships. For example, our PhD program, we have the scholarship open, the University of Southern Queensland scholarships, open to all Indian students want to do a PhD study with our student. It's a full scholarship, and we pay the tuition fee and stipends to up to 3.5 years. So that's a very generous amount of money to giving student. And meanwhile, we also have other scholarships from the Australian government. For example, we have a PhD student from Bangalore to study with us in biotechnology, and she been awarded up to 400,000 Australian dollars to study with us. And through the Centre of Australia-India Relations. And we also have other scholarships available. So there's a lot of scholarship from the University of Southern Queensland, from Australian government, from the state of Queensland to offering for Indian students. As I mentioned, the state of Queensland is taking 70% of the trade amount between Australia and India. So that make a huge difference. And sometimes there's industry scholarships as well.
Right. While we are on the topic of scholarships, a lot of students, apply for scholarship, but let's be honest, not everyone gets the opportunity. So if you would like to give some tips to our students, like who are applying or thinking of applying for a scholarship, like what mistakes should they avoid while applying it?
I think there's two different types. One is a research degree. The research is a very different approach with coursework. Coursework is black and white. And what's your result, your excellence? There's a cutoff mark. You really can't change too much about that. But for research degrees are different, and your idea matters. So the difference doing a PhD in India and PhD in Australia is quite different. So in Australia, if you're doing a PhD from a supervisor's perspective, every single supervisor, they have to teach, they have to do research, they have to supervise, they have to service to the university community. So they don't really have a lot of time to helping you. So number one, you need to be very independent.
Right.
You need to have a good idea. That's a critical part. If your idea being researched, by other people. That's not a new idea.
Right.
That's an old idea. You just rehated that food, that kind of approach. So you must have a brilliant idea to impress other people. So that you need to do a lot of research before you even apply. And second thing is about your language skill. Your language skill is very, very important because even for native speakers in Australia, doing a PhD or research degree is challenging. But if your language is not good enough, you cannot communicate both verbally and in written with the university community and also your supervisor. So that's a critical part. Last but not least, it's about you have to demonstrate you have a track record to do the discovery. You need to understand the methodology on qualitative and quantitative research, how you're collecting the information, how you're analyzing the information, how you're disseminating. And there's also different rules and regulations in Australia and in India, how you can collecting. For example, in Australia, there's a code of conduct for research and how you're collecting the information. And you need to have, before you start your collecting information, you must have your ethical clearance, all different human, animal, biosafety. So I guess the main thing is you need to understand the system.
Right.
Because they are very different with India. You cannot, using your experience in India to communicate with your supervisor and the university. You need to use what's happening in Australia and to communicate. So that's culture difference must be done. A lot of those research must be done before you come into Australia.
Right. So it's also assumed that the high school's, education and the graduate education is much more, it's very rigorous in India here. We have all experienced it. So do you see any difference, in the Indian international students who come to study there?
I think number one, Indian students are very hardworking.
Right.
I do see, there are some students, sprint feet, growing, in the more fortunate family, but also there's a student, hardworking, independent.
Right.
So they are so I wouldn't say Indian students are all the same. Even they're from Delhi, Mumbai, or from different states are different. So state student from Haryana, from Kerala, from Punjab, from Gujarat, from all different states, they're all different.
A lot of cities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been coming to India for a long period of time.
Oh.
So I guess it's really hard to say all Indian students, one size fits all. And second thing, I think the Indian education system and Australian education system are different. Here it's more about memorizing, remember a lot of knowledge. But in Australia, it's more focused on not only knowledge, but skill, experience, and the learning outcome is slightly different.
Right, agree.
So I think that really depends on the student, how quickly they can adopt the new system, new country and new culture, new way of learning.
Right.
But in general, I really impressed with Indian students, and they usually are very quick to adopt.
Right.
Yeah.
So here it's mostly the theoretical base, teaching, and there in Australia it's more, the experience based, even the practical based. That's great. So since UniSQ has a lot of, popular and different programs for different types of interests, so could you just mention your flagship programs or the, most popular programs among the students, especially international students?
Thank you. Our program is mainly aligned with our research strengths,
right,
and particular in engineering, science, and, programs like all our engineering programs. We cover all in different engineerings. As I mentioned before, we have civil engineering, mechanical engineering, construction management, material science, information technology, data science, artificial intelligence. So there's a whole range of science and engineering program is one of our strengths, from space to agriculture.
Yeah.
The second area is health. We have a large number of health programs from medical science, laboratory science, nursing, paramedicine, psychology, social work. We also have a large number of the education program from early childhood to school education, higher education, vocational education research, and also with special education leadership. So there's education program is very strong. Our business school is large and also covering social science, all the business related programs. We have a large law school, and also with the performing arts, media communication, all of those area, and also performing arts. So really, UniSQ is a comprehensive university, but we do have the strength is in engineering science, in health, in agriculture related, in environmental science, and also those things is cross-discipline, like accounting and finance. We do a lot of carbon accounting and carbon finance. And for example, we have a large research grant funded by Australian and Indian government to helping the farmers in the south part of India to understand the climate change, helping farmers to use smart farming, water management to do better farming skills as well. So I guess these days, a lot of our strength is about interdisciplinary research. And for example, like blockchain data science, that's a lot of with our business faculty to helping the business to understand the data science and big data. And that's also a very important part of the Master of Information System.
Right.
So I guess from social science, from creative arts, right onto to science, engineering, and health, and that's the area. And we also have a program called Bachelor of Aviation that's partnered with Qantas and the Australian National Airline to train the pilot and airport management. And we are the only two universities in Australia have both Airbus and Boeing simulators on campus. So the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320, we have two simulators on campus as well. With India's aviation booming, I mean, any city from Hyderabad to Bangalore to Chandigarh, even Ahmedabad, all of those new airport, you need to have a new airport management. But there's no formal qualification or training in particular for those people. And bear in mind, a lot of airport or airline managers, and they're all from engineering background. They don't have a management background. So we do have a Master of Business for aviation for those engineers to transition to a senior leadership in the airport and airline industry as well. So I guess that's also the strength for UniSQ to do cross-discipline training, particular for senior managers as well. So I guess that's just a little highlight for some programs at University of Southern Queensland.
Right. So we see a lot of futuristic programs at the UNSQ. And while talking about futuristic, how does the USQ, prepare students for the future? Because we see there are a lot of new developments coming in the, job market. It's in terms of AI and other things. So how does the universities incorporating their programs?
I think number one, you asked a good question, is about futuristic programs. But before you give the program to the student, you really know what is the future.
Right.
Yeah, so that means through your research. You really have to be the top notch of research university to really understand what is the future. How the artificial intelligence during the revolution, and we are going through a technology revolution at the moment across all disciplines, through the computer science to biological science to every single part of our life. So number one, is we want to always be the front of our research. And we need to be informed what is the future. And then the next is we translate what we discovered into the teaching, partner with our industry partners to make sure our program is up to date and also is future proof for our student for employment. In the next decade, there's a lot of jobs going to disappear.
Right.
A lot of new jobs are coming up. And if you remember, maybe like a bit older than you, we remember when we have those developing films and then putting pictures out.
Right.
And we remember there was a lot of shops trying to print films. But until the digital form and smartphone coming in and all of those businesses disappeared.
Right.
So we really need to know what is the future to start with and translate those future understanding into the program, partner with industry. And then we teach our student to help. So what we need to do is really partner with the agents like AECC, because end of the day, students need to know what is the future before they even go into the program. But how many of those students or family or parents really understand what is going on in the science and research space? What is the future? And a lot of students doesn't think agriculture is not a good program. But actually, country like India have 1.4 billion people. The food is number one priority for this country. To make sure you have a limited land, have to feed 1.4 billion people. And that's forever going to be a very important program. So that kind of vision is not only the university need to know, translate into the program, but we also need to work with agents and partners and to make sure that message get out to students as early as possible.
Right. So you're absolutely correct. So food is something which is going to stay constant, regardless of any changes.
Yep.
So that's agriculture. A lot of people think is not a very good option, is a very, they think of it as a very, less of a career. But that's not true. Agriculture is very much needed and it's a very futuristic career, to be honest. So since when a student, goes to another country, apart from tuition fee, there are a lot of other expenses we see, the accommodation, the living expense, the groceries, the traveling expenses. So tell us about the living cost in Australia and, why it's different from the other countries.
Australia is like any other country, like India. Living in Mumbai and Delhi and living in Kerala or in Ahmedabad are completely different cost.
Right.
So you really need to know Australia is a very expensive country. But there's a pocket of different state and different cities are very different cost. So the most congestion, everyone complain about Delhi and from one place to another is very congested. You have to go an hour or 2 hours early to get there on time. It's same in Australia. 80% of Australians living in the 5-6 capital cities.
Right.
And then the largest one are very costly and congested. So that really give a lot of smart thinking. The student and family need to do their research. The difference between Australian city and Indian city is it doesn't matter you live in which part of Australia. The basics, the supermarkets, the shopping center, the hospital, and all of those basic schools are same. So you're living in the biggest city in Australia or you're living in 300,000 people, a town, they have same basic supplies.
Right.
So that's the difference between the Australian city and Indian city. But the cost for the smaller city is much cheaper. A lot of people have this misinformation going to the big city, they're going to have more opportunity for a part-time job.
Right.
But that's not true because a lot of those big cities also have a big competition.
True.
So not only your cost of living is very high, but also the job you can get is most of the people don't want to do in the big city.
Absolutely true.
So in the smaller city, you have much more opportunity to work in the profession related to what you learn because they need talent. They're living the environment is similar. So you might up to paying half what you in the big cities.
Right.
So that's the advantage in Australia in the smaller city or slightly distanced out. So no one complains. Say, for example, our main campus is called in Toowoomba. It's an hour and a half from Brisbane.
Right.
In an hour and a half in Delhi, you travel, you wouldn't think that's very far.
Right.
But somehow in Australia, and then you think that's very, very far. That's not true. It's because it's lack of population. So I guess I would strongly encourage student and family to really do the research. If you can save 50% to 40% to 50% of the cost of living, that's a huge scholarship for you.
Right.
Different part of Australia to, say, for example, you're living in 30 minutes from the city centre and an hour and a half from the city centre, the cost of living could be very different. So that's why I encourage all the Indian students to really think the living standard and condition is similar, but the cost of living is much cheaper. So that's a huge saving, huge scholarship for those students who really want to have a quality of life, because you don't have to work. And with that saving, you could 100% concentrate to study. And then you have a much more opportunity to have a professional job and then relate it to what you learn.
Right. So there's a misconception among students that, living in a big city will give you much more opportunities and it will, cater to your needs more efficiently. But that's not true. Living in a big country comes with its own, cons. Like as you mentioned, the living cost is so high, and living in the smaller city that provides the same opportunities, but with a less cost of living. Those are some really great advices. Now moving on, since moving to a new country also gives students a lot of culture shock. So tell us something Indian students should know before going to Australia. Like, I have heard that most of the malls or shopping scenes close at 5 in Australia. So is that true?
That's true. That's true, because the cost of living and labor are very expensive in Australia. So most of the people are not hanging around at shopping mall or shops are the priority for people.
Right.
So people are more concentrated on family and also for their hobbies. For example, some people like gardening.
Right.
Some people like hiking. Some people like beach, going for swimming or surfing. So everyone has different hobby. Of course, there's cricket, and there's also different sports, because Australia is a very sports-focused country as well. So I guess people have their individual interest. So I strongly encourage anyone going to Australia, because the reason why you're going to another country is to learn, to experience the differences. Try step out of your comfort zone and your own culture. If you really want Indian curries and hanging around with Indian colleagues, you should stay in India. I strongly encourage any Indian student to explore different culture.
Right.
People from Europe, people from Latin America, from other Asian countries, or the locals. The main thing, I think there is a misinterpretation is every single student become more loving their own culture when they go overseas. They seem to have a lot of complaint about their own culture in their own country. As long as they step out, they become very loyal to their own culture and own identity. I can assure every single Indian student, you're not going to lose your Indian identity. You're not going to lose your culture. because even you do, other people will remind you every single time. But it's much harder to cross culture to other culture, to experience other culture. Australia is a very good country to provide that opportunity.
Right.
So make sure don't hang around with your own people or only experience your own cuisine or your own culture. Try to be brief. That's the main purpose you're going to a country like Australia.
True.
To study.
Right. So experiencing new cultures also give you a lot of new learnings, and it comes with, the experiences only. So while we're on the topic of the culture, tell us about the campus life at the UNSQ, because that's also a very, important aspect students look for while choosing any university. So clubs and societies.
We have all of those things because the university have more than 180 languages spoken on campus. So the staff and students are truly from all different culture and background. And I know currently is the Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan. There's certain student in India also experience that culture. And we in our main campus in Toowoomba is only 200,000 people, second largest inland city in whole Australia after Canberra. We have mosque is run by our academics, by our academic staff. So we provide all multi-faith, opportunity, and then for student to practice. We have a club and societies, and from sports interested, hobby interested, related, we have sports center, we have gym, we have tennis court. There's a whole range of things student can experience.
Right.
But the main thing Indian student need to perspective is this is a country have 1.4 billion people. Anywhere you go, even a small country town, have probably huge number of population. Australia is not. So you really need to understand you might not seeing people during the weekend on the street. And it doesn't matter where you are. And Australia is a small population in the very large land. So that kind of wildness people need to accept because you won't hear the noise in Delhi.
Right.
So every time I'm coming here, I have to adjust myself with the population, with the noise. That's about large city.
Right.
You're always here, but that's not happening in Australia.
Right. So as you mentioned, the Australian people, close all their shops and everything at 5, and, people enjoy the time with the family. That really means that the Australian people respect work-life balance. So I guess Australia is a very good country to settle down as well. Even if you are going to study there, it's a very good option to settle down because work-life balance is something everyone looks forward to. And a lot of countries, a lot of, destinations lack that. So I think Australia is a very good option for that also. Okay, so for my last question, I would like to ask you if you'd like to give some tips to our students who are thinking of coming to USQ or any Australian university.
I think number one, I would challenge the student and the family to think about why you want to study overseas rather than study in India.
Right.
So what is the motivation for you to go overseas? And then you need to choose the right country. And what country is going to be safe?
Right.
It's going to be giving you what you want to learn, and also have a opportunity, maybe working post your study.
Right.
The post-study working right from Australia is also particular in our main region in Toowoomba, Ipswich and Springfield, have extra year of post-study working right. So those are the questions. And I want the student to think first. And then you really need to know which university having the high graduate employability and also starting salary. Because at the end of the day, you need to have a job.
Right.
And then also have a high paid job to compensate what you already spent it. So if you can't earn what you already expended,
Mhm.
that's a bad investment, right?
Absolutely true.
So, and then you need to look at the university's strength,
Mhm.
those programs, what those universities programs you need to really can
Mhm.
helping you to achieve your employability and your starting salary. And during that process, I really want to encourage, does your parents or yourself can support you during the study?
Right.
Because the high cost of living. Do you want to live in the big cities, paying a lot of money, and then to have a second job?
Mhm.
You don't have time to study,
Mhm.
or you want to live in a relatively smaller place close to the main city, but it's much less cost of living. And then you have more opportunity to get a professional job. So those are the questions I would want to propose to the future Indian student and their family to think very carefully. And for any further,
Mhm.
if there's a parents and student advanced, they need to do research. What's the future?
Right.
A lot of the students and parents are not very informed,
Mhm.
and they only look those rankings, and those rankings are very limited,
Right.
and they doesn't give you the full information about the future
Mhm.
and the city and the employability and all of that. So that's a very important thing I want to propose to the student. It really depends on the student and family, how much they can afford, what kind of motivation they want to study, and post-study, do they want to working in those countries, the employability, and also the starting salary and cost of living. Those are the key points. But number one thing is about safety. They need to go somewhere safe,
Mhm.
and the parents doesn't worry about them, and also have a better climate.
Right. So those are some really great advices. Thank you so much, Dr. Ren, for coming to the show and answering all these questions very patiently. You gave us so many advices and insights, and it's really going to help a lot of students out there.
Thank you. It's
Thank
my
you so
pleasure.
much again. Also, would you like to tell us about the upcoming intake at the USQ?
Sure. The university have 3 semesters. We have an intake in end of January and February, and in May and in September. So we're one of the few Australian universities have a trimester system. So that means it's quite aligned with Indian students,
Right.
graduate. So they can get the result in May and June, and then to apply for September intake. But also our January and May intake for those students who didn't get the opportunity, and they can have more options. So they don't have to wait for 6 months.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two is about quality. So quality is very important because the limited visa issues in Australia. So our university have very strong on integrity and quality of the applicants. So they need to understand, answer all the questions truthfully, and they need to work with quality agents like AECC
Right.
to helping them. So that's, we partner with quality agents as well. We're very selective. We don't want to, we only have 30,000 students. We don't have 50,000 or 80,000. Our international student is only taking about 15 to 20% of our student cohort. So we're very selective, but we're very affordable and good quality institution, research orientated. So I guess students really need to take advantage of the trimester and working with quality agents like AECC to make sure they have a successful journey rather than being rejected.
That's so great, and thank you so much, Dr. Ren. And for our audience, if you guys have any questions about the USQ or studying in Australia, feel free to drop a comment or visit your nearest AECC branch. You can also call us on our toll-free number, and AECC is always here to help. And if you like this episode, do share it with your friends who are willing to study in Australia, and like and subscribe our channel.
Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to see all the audience to come into the University of Southern Queensland.
See you in our next Thoughtcast.